Welcome to the Morning Slice.
Hello, friends. Thank you so much for clicking play and being here with me. This is your host, Brianna McInerny speaking. Today, I'm introducing you to one of my very favorite people, one of my very favorite humans on the face of the planet. Her name is Hilarie Dahl. And Hilarie is one of the most powerful energy healers that I've ever had the pleasure of getting to know. She not only has such power and skill and knowledge that she applies to her actual energy medicine that she provides to people, but she has such a wonderful way of describing the work that she does and putting her understanding of energy, her experience of energy into words. Hilarie and we met several years ago at a learning opportunity, a business development opportunity. We sat next to each other over the course of a weekend on a couch in Buffalo, New York. And I remember just instantly feeling safe, feeling cozy in her energy field. And it stood out to me. Not everybody has such a stable, grounding presence. And I was so fortunate to be able to get to know her and spend time with her over the course of that weekend. And we ended up becoming really good friends over the course of the next few years. And part of our friendship has looked like very regular, constant communication. That hasn't necessarily been true recently because, life has decided to life for both of us. But we have gone through periods of time where we would Marco Polo each other every single day, and we would have these long phone calls for hours, just telling each other everything about what's going on for us in life and what we're noticing, what themes we're noticing, what growth we're working on. I just absolutely cherish every moment that I get to spend with this person, and I hope that you will cherish her too, because she is such a gift. And something that I've loved as I go back through and edit this conversation, which actually took place, I think it was early 2021, so still in the COVID era, but after we'd already been dealing with this kind of stuff for a good year. Something I loved about editing this is just it brought me back to those long, luxurious conversations that Hilarie and I have together, talking about literally anything and everything, just seeing where the conversation takes us and the connection, the genuine friendship that I feel when I am with her, because we both will put in the effort to hold space for each other, to understand the other. And she is just somebody who makes me feel like I can always be myself. She sees me, and I definitely felt that coursing throughout the vibe of this conversation, and I hope that you, being a fly on the wall, will soak up some of that connection too and enjoy the energy that we cultivated together here. We talk about all kinds of good stuff in this episode, so stick with us. Take it in chunks if you need to, because I know it's a little bit long, but I think you'll find a lot of great gems, and I won't drag it out any longer, but I will see you on the other side. So enjoy.
Okay, so we're diving right in.
Yeah, let's do it.
I was just telling Hilarie that I am more nervous for this interview than I've ever been, and I find it hilarious because we're friends.
And we've had a million conversations.
Yes, like a million conversations, and we don't even have an agenda.
No.
maybe that's what's making me nervous, because this is the
Sure.
first time that I'm recording one of these without like a set list of questions in front of me.
Mm. Yeah, so that could be it, that lack of structure.
I guess so. I guess so. But I was telling Hilarie that I'm creating all of these reasons in my mind that maybe we should not do this. Maybe it's a bad idea. And like, thank God you were okay with just pressing record, because
Totally.
I think it's valuable, but I think it's so interesting.
Yeah.
And I knew it would be valuable for people to hear us talk about this.
Sure, sure. Can I tell you something that's happening in my world that
Please.
has that is having like energetic ripple effects on the people around me?
Maybe this is part of it. So
Yeah, because you said that and I was like, oh God, maybe it's me. Okay, so I'm looking for a new living space, a new apartment. And this will be my first time moving in 5 years, I think. And for someone who has so much Gemini in her chart, I really dislike moving. I like to have my home space sorted and really secure. And so just the thought of moving is like terrifying.
Mhm.
Um, and I'm also doing like a really big up level with this move. So I'm
Yes.
basically upgrading everything. And I went to see what is like a dream apartment this morning.
Ooh,
Yes.
tell me everything.
And well, so I was texting my mom and she was like, I'm having a regular heart rate right now. And I was like, what? And she was like, yeah, I feel like really anxious about nothing. Right. And I was like, I'm sorry. That might be me because I'm freaking out right now. And that happens a lot with the two of us, is that like I'll be like nauseous and she'll be like, I feel sick about something. And I'm like, God damn it. Like, that's yours, not mine. Um and so I texted her back and I was like, I'm really sorry. This might be my fault. You might have my irregular heartbeat right now.
So interesting.
Yeah. So I actually brought her with me and she just like hung out in the car because she was like, driving in the car will help me chill out. And I was like, okay, perfect. You can come with me. And but then I had another friend text me and she was like, I feel really anxious for no reason this morning. And I'm like, I'm so sorry. That might be me.
You've got strong energy going on right now. Maybe that
Strong
is
vibes, man.
Oh man.
Yeah. So some of that nervousness might be me sharing.
Wonderful. Good to know.
So apologies if any of that is mine. And I
Well,
gladly call it back.
oh, well, I'm first of all so glad we're talking about this,
I'm
because
glad.
another part of the thing was, I was like, I just want to catch up with Hilarie. Like, I don't want the
Right?
pressure of recording a podcast. I just like, Hilarie and I have these wonderful, luxurious calls sometimes where we just talk about everything
We
that's going
do.
on.
They're like telephone versions of a spa trip.
Ah, yes,
Yeah.
exactly. But like, I love, that's part of why I love We Just Press Record, because I think we just need to have a call and like take the listeners along with us. It's like trying to bottle lightning,
Yeah,
which
it
I
really
think
is.
creates a little energetic, like additional thing too, but like
Totally.
also, so yeah, I'm just glad we're talking about the housing situation, because I know you've been looking for a place and I'm like, okay, I need to know everything that's going on with you, because that's exciting. I want to know everything.
Well, and so this is something that I've actually been talking about with a lot of people, not just because it's happening in my own life, but because how I go about vetting a place to live is different than a lot of other people.
So, how do you vet a place to live? Let's really break
Yeah.
this down. I would love to hear about it.
Well, so for me, it starts with the energy of it. Even when I like look at pictures of it and I see a layout of it, like I can get a feeling of it just like I could with someone who asked me to do a house clearing or something like that. Like I can get a sense of that space just from visuals of it.
Mhm.
Um and so it starts with that, and it's much less about um, the practical elements of it and much more about how I feel when I'm in the space. So, like, sound is a really big thing, light is a really big thing. So, all those sensory experiences that I have weigh much more heavily than, like, I can't tell you how many emails I've gotten back where they're like, and we have granite countertops and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I don't, if the vibe is off, I don't care if you have granite countertops. Like, that's so irrelevant. Right. And so it's interesting, when they tell me like name brands of appliances and stuff like that, like those are the important things. And I'm like, I don't care if I have a Whirlpool or a GE refrigerator. I care if I have like Western exposure in my windows versus Eastern exposure in my
Yeah.
windows.
Well, and also, like, can you describe the hum that the appliance?
Yeah. Do they make a sound?
Yeah. Well, tell me about. Okay. So wait, no, I'll slow myself down. So the first part of vetting a place is getting this energy
Right. The sense of it.
read. Yeah.
Yeah. The energy read.
Love.
Totally. Um, and then I think seeing it and being in the space and getting that energy read in person, right? And having that sensory experience of, um, you know, and it can be stuff like, where are the vents? Like, am I having hot air blown on me? Do I have radiator heat? Stuff like that. Like, the sensory experience of being there. Um,
I would love to hear, like, internally, is there a sensory experience you're looking for and what that might feel like?
yeah, yeah, there are a few. So, I actually really enjoy forced air more than radiator heat, because radiator heat to me feels like being in the sunshine. It feels like oppressive.
Mhm.
Whereas, like, air, I am very much an air sign to my core. And so I love that my heat or my air conditioning would make air move in my space.
Mm.
Um, so something like that makes a really big difference because I want to feel that flow. I want to have that transfer. It's almost like getting a little bit of a breeze, even when your windows are closed. Um, and I really love lots of light. So I want as much of that because I want to feel that light on my skin. Like, I want to feel as much like I'm outside or like in a treehouse as I possibly can.
Mhm.
So in other words, like, I want as much um, experience of the elements as I can possibly get because that feels so good in my body.
Yeah.
So that like reorients me to my own rhythm. Um, and it makes me feel much more connected and creative and nourished.
Mhm.
Um, so that's a big thing. And I think a lot of sensory elements in a living space can also make you feel safe,
Mhm.
right? So the heights of ceilings and where furniture is positioned and where furniture even can be positioned, right? Because you can't just put anything anywhere. Um,
Mhm.
makes a big difference. So like, for example, the place I saw today, has a stairwell that comes up and kind of a half wall next to the staircase, right? So the staircase comes up to the second floor, and rather than it coming up next to a full wall that you have to walk around, it comes up next to a half wall.
Sure.
And so that half wall, I could never have a couch against that half wall and have people like walking up behind me,
Right.
right? Because that would not make me feel safe. So things like that, right? I'm looking at the space and I'm like, where would I put my couch? Right? Where would that make me feel safe? Where would that make me feel cozy?
Mm.
Um,
What a nice
so
way to think about arranging your space. What would make me feel safe and cozy?
yeah, totally. Well, because why would I ever move into a space that didn't make me feel safe and cozy if that's something that's a priority for me?
Of course.
And that's not a priority for everyone, I don't think, like a top priority for everyone.
Sure.
Um, so yeah, so it's all of that stuff. And safe and cozy is at the very top of my safe, cozy, inspired are at the very top of my home feelings.
Repeat those again for me. They're
Safe,
safe, cozy, and
cozy,
inspired.
inspired.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I appreciate you walking us through it because it makes it easier for me to like imagine sensations when I'm being walked through it. And I
Yeah.
find that's one of the things I love the most about talking to each other is that we like bounce up to this super delicious feeling space, you
Mm,
know.
yes, I do.
I think that's what makes it like a spa trip. And we've got so much good stuff to talk about today.
Mm.
So I wonder if there's any further steps before we move forward that you use to evaluate your space since we started that.
Oh, well, so I do this with a lot of spaces is I talk with it.
What a great conversation. Yes.
I talk with it. Yeah.
What
And
a
see if it
conversation
has
like.
anything to say, right? Does it want me there? Does it not want me there? Like that's huge. I don't want to be in a space that's not interested in having me there. And I'm not also interested in being in a space that doesn't feel up to the task of containing me.
Mm.
And I don't mean that size wise, but like energetically, right? Does it have the fortitude to contain me? Because I'm a lot and my work is a lot. And because now the space is also being vetted as, you know, I'm working from home. And so it's a live workspace.
Yeah.
And is it up to the task? Does it want that task? Right? Some home spaces are much more passive than others. Some have much less capacity than others. And again, like I'm talking energetics, not physical size.
Right.
Um, and so it has to be up for it. It has to be excited about that, not just like, yeah, I could do that, I guess. But like, yeah, bring it on.
Let's get this going. Yeah.
Right?
What are we waiting for?
Yeah,
Get in here.
exactly. Exactly. Like I want it to feel like a partner,
Mm.
not just this place that I go that I don't really have a connection to.
How wonderful.
Yeah. So that conversation is really important.
Yeah. Well, it's bringing to mind for me money, which is something we
Mm.
talk about all the time and kind of related,
Oh, money.
but that's kind of how I'm playing with the conversation with money, I guess, is that I want to feel like partners and
Mm.
friends and like going down the same road together and excited to be doing it, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what it made me think of when you talk about having a space that is the same sort of partner and how useful, how wonderful. And there must be a million different things to apply this to.
I mean, of course, right? You can talk to anything, you can partner with anything on an energetic level.
Mhm.
Um, and I think if your goal is to grow and expand, your home space really needs to be on board with that.
Yeah.
And the same with money, right? Your relationship with money really needs to be on board with that. Because think about it, if you had a partner that was like, I am who I am. Like, I'm going to live in this place that I'm living right now. I'm going to have these friends that I have right now. I'm going to do this job that I have right now. And that's it, right? Like, I never want to go beyond that. I never want more than this. And you're over here like, but I want to expand and I want to grow and I want more than this and I want to get bigger and I want my life to be bigger, right? That's going to be a really challenging partnership.
Yes.
Right. And it's the same with anything, with a home space, with another person, with money, with time, right? There are all those relationships that, like, if you're not on the same page, you can't really lock arms and get support for that.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I love this. It makes me think of the body as well.
Totally.
Mm.
Totally.
Oh gosh, there's so many things. I'm like
I can
taking
like
notes
feel your wheels turning.
which is normal for me. I always have
I
17 different directions that I want to ask questions in. And I'm like writing down notes over here of things I want to go
love
back
it.
to. But I want to hear about the space that you saw before we move too far forward, because I'm so excited for you as you look for this new space. And I like genuinely. So how was it? Did this feel like a winner?
It
Or
felt, yes, it felt so good. And what's interesting is, like, I practically floated out of there when I was done. And the guy who showed it to me was just the freaking sweetest. And he was like, it feels like you really like it. And I was like, I do. It was super cute. And so it has an attached garage downstairs. So it's on the second floor. So you can, like, drive into your garage and walk right up into your apartment,
nice.
which feels really good and, like, kind of luxurious. Like, think about that in the winter time. It's going to feel so good. Or, like, if I get home in the middle of the night, not having to, like, walk through a parking lot or something, like, it just feels so safe, and so easy. And it also means that there's room for my life down there. Like, I can have a kayak down there. I can keep my bike down there. I can keep a motorcycle down there. Like, there's lots of room to expand, which is really nice.
Mhm.
And then you go upstairs, and it's a 1-bedroom apartment that's above the garages, which means there's nobody above me and there's nobody living below me, which is so awesome. So, like, nobody else's energy is in that space, which is really, really nice. And it gets northern and western exposure. So it has tons of windows because it's on a corner.
Oh, nice.
So it just has, like, 2 walls of windows, which is glorious. And there's, like, a really nice big living room. And then there's, like, a little dining area, which I think would be my workspace,
Mhm.
kitchen, bedroom, laundry, bathroom, like, nothing crazy. But it feels good. It has a really good layout. Um, it's almost perfectly square, which I love. Like, the entire apartment is almost perfectly square, which feels really good too, to have that, like, evenness.
Yeah.
And all the numbers of the apartment building add up to 8, which I really love. 8's my number.
I want to know what you love about the number 8.
So it's kind of funny how it started.
Mhm.
I had a crush on an NHL hockey player when I was growing up.
Okay. Don't want to name names.
Oh, Eric Lindros. I will name the name.
There we go.
I thought he was, like, the cutest guy in the whole world. And of course he was, like, 30 when I was, like, 12, but whatever.
Sometimes those childhood crushes, just the logistics don't make sense.
No. But I thought he was dreamy. And His number was 88, and I was born in 1988.
Okay.
And my life path number is 8.
Life path number.
So there's a lot that started very early with 8s, and that has stayed significant for me for my whole life. So like 8 is a really good sign to me if I were looking for signs.
Yeah.
And I actually just found out what number it was. The rental guy sent it over, and I added up the numbers, and I was like, oh, how interesting. um, Not that that's what's going to make my decision, but it feels like a green light,
Sometimes the universe just sends these lovely little nudges, these lovely
Yeah.
little, like, hey, look how perfect this is. Look how
Right.
playful, you know?
Yeah, it does. It feels playful.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. So I love that.
Well, and I'm curious, like, we don't have to talk about it a long time, but the life path number, I'm trying to remember because I feel like I figured out what mine was once. Can you?
I can never remember it has something to do with like your date of birth combined with the numbers of your it's not your name. There's some other set of numbers that go into it, I think.
And I can link to it in the notes as well, like some kind of resource about this. But
Yeah. So if you just Google like life path number, it's
mhm.
really easy to find out your life path. And like there are also different numbers, but like your master number. um
Like, what does it mean to have a life path number 8? Like, what does this tell us about you?
really similar things to what my astrology says.
Cool.
Yeah, so it's like it's very yeah, like it's about being a natural leader, being able to like carry a big vision, but not being super great at carrying out details. um, Lots and lots of success with money. It's a really great money number.
Hmm.
Um, and But also like sometimes a level of like ambition or greed or wanting that can like get in the way of my fullest expression and contribution in the world. um and so that's what my astrology says. That's also what my human design says. It's also what my enneagram number says. So
Wow.
it's all very lined up.
I love it. I'm such a junkie for little
Ah,
personality things like that just
yeah,
kind of give me clues about what might work best for me. Like, we're always trying it on and seeing, does it
totally.
work? Does it not?
Yeah,
For me personally, but
yeah. Yeah, I've been loving, I follow some folks on Instagram who are doing human design stuff and kind of combining it with like intuitive readings for
Mhm.
each design. And I'm loving that because inevitably she'll post something for a manifesting generator. And I'm like, oh my God, how did she know? Like, I haven't talked to anyone about that. How did she know?
Are
And
there
then I'm like,
certain people that you love for this, I wonder?
yes, actually, I will. I don't have my phone in front of me. I intentionally like put it away so I wasn't
Wonderful.
distracted.
Let me know and we'll link to them and
But I will totally. And there's one in particular that I'm thinking of that we can absolutely link to. She's awesome,
wonderful.
and she's like so intuitive. Like you can almost feel her channel, like that pathway through which things arrive for her, and how like loving and clear it is. Like I feel like I can almost see that pathway attached to her that is just like um Yeah, just like really clear and really beautiful. So I love when she talks because I can, I can almost feel like those words moving down that pathway or through that channel. And I think not everybody who channels, quote unquote, feels that way to me.
Yeah.
And so I love being able to like really connect into that because it's almost like being able to verify that she's actually channeling. Because I can see the channel. Like I can see that pathway.
I love
Um,
that.
yeah, yeah. So we can absolutely link to her.
Absolutely. Oh my God, there's so many things that I love about all of that. But I'm going to circle back to something that I wanted to talk about because it's not exactly the same. I don't know why I feel like this is related, but I jotted down boundaries, just the word boundaries, because when we opened up, we basically were talking about this mishmash of energetic boundaries that would lead me to be impacted by this like huge amount of energy that's going on in your life right now, which I think is a really interesting conversation about energetic boundaries. And I don't know why it feels related to me, to the channel, but just I guess part of why I'm so excited to talk to you on the podcast is because I mean, God, there are a million different things I could say, but you're just like this master of energy, first of all, but in such a powerful way that like you don't struggle to communicate about what you do at all, which I think can be kind of rare in the energy world. Like it's very felt, right? Like we can have a felt sense of what's real and what's not and what's, XYZ, whatever.
Yeah.
But not everybody, and I really crave that in my life, is the ability to like break things down through words.
Yeah.
And that is rare about you. But just since we're talking about what's rare about you,
Oh
like
God.
another thing I love about you is a powerful energy like wielder and healer is that you've got this wonderful relationship with money, which is another very rare thing I think to find,
Yeah.
at least in my experience, which I don't know, maybe that's my problem, but like I love that about you so much.
Hey.
And energetic boundaries are such a huge thing that I know everybody kind of, notices and we're playing with basically at all
All
times.
the time.
So I wonder what's popping for you. I'm not even gonna ask a question. I'm just
Yeah.
gonna let it loose.
What immediately comes to mind is that I think when we talk about boundaries, we tend to even phrase them as these static things like walls, right? Like I'm going to build a wall and then there's a boundary here.
Mhm.
But boundaries are not like that. They're changing and they're moving all the time. And I think it speaks to the strength of a boundary when it can be supple and flexible versus when it's brittle, right? And or non-existent,
Right.
right? So there's a sweet spot on that boundary, that spectrum of boundary creation, that they're strong and supple, right? So you can move them, you can bend them because it changes. What you need and want from moment to moment changes, which means your boundaries need to be able to flex with that, right?
Right.
I think about wearing clothes that feel like really comfortable and movable with you versus clothes that feel really stiff,
Mhm.
right? You want boundaries that move with you.
Yeah.
And but I think we don't have a lot of language around that because when we talk about boundaries, we tend to talk about them like drawing a line in the sand,
Yeah.
right?
Absolutely.
Rather than these like living things that live with us.
Right. I'm thinking of a muscle too, like
Yeah,
how muscles bend and like the
totally.
of a muscle, how much weight it can handle.
Yeah.
Depends on
How
its
much it can
flexibility.
stretch.
Right.
Exactly.
Right. I couldn't agree with you more. And yeah. So what's coming to mind is that it's kind of I'm noticing how it might be construed as a bad thing to some people that I was feeling what you were feeling,
Sure.
impacted by that.
Sure,
And I
sure.
can see in some ways how that could be challenging in other connections with other people in certain relationship dynamics, right?
Yeah.
And I don't necessarily view it as a negative thing to be
No.
it's kind of like a natural thing. And I almost feel I feel very grateful that you, especially, as somebody who I know with very strong energetic boundaries, and I myself too. I think that I've come to,
Yes.
feel the flexible energetic boundary myself.
Yeah.
But like it's such a sweet blessing to be granted access into your energy
Mm.
field, that we would be impacted by each other's energy.
Yeah. And I think that speaks to like the nature of our friendship.
Mhm.
Because I certainly don't have that with everyone. Right. Like if I was talking with a podcast host that I'd never met before, right? Like some random person, I guarantee you they would not be feeling what I was feeling.
Yeah,
I don't care how empathic they are.
absolutely.
Yeah. And so I think that also speaks to, you're not some random podcast host. We do have a relationship and we do have a certain set of boundaries. And I think that set of boundaries is perhaps more open, right? We have a lot of access to each other, I think, in a really like beautiful way.
We've built this
Um,
trust over time.
yeah, exactly, right? Because it wasn't like that right out of the gate.
No, it took time. That
It
being
did.
said, we're still relatively new friends.
True,
But
true. But
but I think
I
it's
think
been
we've
like
put
4
a
years or something.
I I know.
Isn't
So
that
it's not like
crazy?
it's not brand new, but it's not old. And I think we've worked on it a lot. Like
Yeah.
especially in the last 2 years, we've talked a lot. We've done a lot of relating.
Yeah.
Um,
Thank goodness.
thank
I
goodness.
love having you in my life so much.
And I think what happens naturally in that is that like we build boundaries together, right? Because that's what happens in any relationship is
Right.
that you build boundaries together, right? They're co-created. And sometimes that goes better with some people than with others, certainly, right? And the people who it goes well with, I think, are the people that we end up keeping,
Oh, yeah.
right? Like when that co-creation of boundaries goes really well, that's someone that you want to keep. That's someone that you're like, this feels so good for
Yeah.
both of us. Um,
And it ties back to the safety a little bit. Like, I know it makes me feel very safe when I know that I'm with somebody, I can tell them exactly what's present for me, even if it makes zero sense. If there's some kind of issue, they'll be open to
yeah,
working that out with me
totally.
collaboratively.
Hmm.
We've
Yeah,
been able to communicate explicitly about what our boundaries are in a
yeah,
very loving way,
yeah.
very proactively.
Very proactively. And I think that's the other thing is that I think because of what you and I both do,
Mhm.
and who we are as people, we are very proactive in the sense that like we've both asked each other, right? Like, how does this feel to you? How does this work for you? Right? Like, we haven't just said, like, this is how I feel, this is what works for me, but actively sought out what is that like for you? Where are you at with this? And
Yeah.
I think that makes a really huge difference in any kind of relationship, right? Of not just being able to communicate your stuff, but actively seek out that other person's experience and then collaboratively blend those together.
Yeah. Well, and it nurtures the flow of energy through the relationship with the giving and receiving being natural and like witnessed, I guess.
Yeah.
That's what I'm noticing is that the give and take, yes, we blend together energetically and we like flow, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
So I guess that speaks to why boundaries need to be flexible so that they can
Oh,
let the goodness flow back and forth between two people, you
yeah. In a
know?
way that feels safe and good to both people, right?
Right.
Or to everyone involved.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
I wonder if there's anything else that we need to share about how we did that to help our listeners.
Hmm. Yeah, that's
I don't know.
interesting. I don't know either. Um, yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing was how explicit we both are. Like, neither one of us is very squeamish when it comes to stuff like that.
No.
And I also think that for people, because I used to be one of those people who was very squeamish about that and did not want to talk about that and was like really reticent to have those conversations. Um, and I think what helped me transition that, well, and you were someone who helped me transition that and
Aw,
still
thank
helps me
you.
transition that because you're so fearless. I almost just swore.
You can swear. I could just tell YouTube or Spotify or whoever to quit it. You know?
Because you're so fucking fearless when it comes to those conversations. Like, you are the one of the bravest like emotional beings I've ever come across. And I think that makes a really big difference to have that like ingredient in a relationship, because it definitely has the power to like embolden the other person.
Mm.
And I think I witnessed that in you really, really early on, right? Like when we first met. Um, and I remember thinking to myself, like, I bet I could do that. Like, I bet I could be in a conversation and liberate someone else by showing up that bravely, right?
Mm.
By being that honest, by asking those questions. And I think for me, it was really about like, um, how do I take the charge out of those questions?
Mm.
Because for me, like if I'm in the background, like freaking out about them, right, then they're loaded questions, right? They don't come in a spirit of playfulness. They don't come in a spirit of curiosity, or compassion or love. They come from that place of like, holy shit, I have to have this conversation and I really don't want to. And I'm scared and I'm tense, right?
Yeah.
And something that you are so good at is just like asking the question.
You have no idea how much that reflection means to me. That was very sweet and I appreciate you. And I'll just say that I can notice that that's something that, yeah, is inherent to who I am. And I think I've scared many of people away with this. So, like, thank you for sticking around because not everybody has the capacity to hold this,
Yeah.
right?
And I think that speaks to that goes back to like the space conversation, right?
Yeah.
Does this person have the capacity for you? Do they have the fortitude to show up and be able to contain that relationship?
Yeah.
And, and it's no judgment if they don't, right?
No.
Like a lot of people don't. And
It's
that's okay. That's okay because the right ones will.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And I am finding that, the more that I
Mhm.
just kind of dive in and embrace that some people can't contain it, but others will be able to. That's, and like what a depth and beauty it adds to have those conversations, right? But as much as it is an inherent part of me, it is also something that has been practiced and worked
Totally.
on as well. And like my work with, I'm saying like a lot. Um, my experience with Samaritans, the suicide prevention hotline is coming to mind big time, because that was, it speaks to the need to have the question asked explicitly. And just simply asking, I'm flashing back to repeating the question over and over again, are you feeling suicidal? And so many people are afraid to ask a question like that.
Totally.
And I mean, it's not even just the suicide conversation. Sex is another conversation that I was very squeamish for a very long time. And, so there has definitely been practice that's come for me as well with becoming less squeamish.
Yeah. And I mean, I think that's true of everyone who uses that skill now as an adult, is that maybe some of that was born, maybe some of that was taught in your family. That gets honed, that gets sharpened, that gets built over time as an adult. No question about it.
It's kind of fun being an adult. Like I'm getting like the
Yeah.
visual of us like sharpening our tools that now we've wielded since childhood, and we like actually understand how to use them. So it's like a fun, and it's making me think about the books that you've been reading lately, the fiction that you've been
So good.
mentally teasing me with when we talk.
Yeah, I don't care what anybody says. When I was a kid, I wanted to be an adult so bad. And I still want to be an adult so bad. Like I have talked to so many people in their late 20s, early 30s who say something along the lines of, I wish I could just go back. I wish I could just be a kid again. I would not trade that for anything. I can do anything I want now.
Yeah,
Who wants to trade that? What?
totally.
Yeah. Yeah. I would never ever want to go back. I love being a grown up. Even when I'm bad at it.
Yeah. Sometimes I think it would be fun to go back and know then what I know now. But like when I really think about it here with you, I'm also like, I've always been kind of wise for my years, and I feel like I still feel like I seem really young to a lot of people for what I'm saying. So like why would I want to go back to being an even wiser 10-year-old or 15-year-old than I was? Like that sounds maybe even more painful than adolescence
Right?
already was.
Yeah. It feels like I'm finally aging into my being, my personality.
I love it.
Yeah. Yeah. It feels good.
Well, so let's switch gears to one of the other topics that I have noted down here, because I got them. I feel like I'm being so weird.
Why?
I don't know. I don't know. I feel playful, I guess. And I'll
That's
just say
good.
out loud that like that is what I want more of on this podcast, and it feels like a growth edge for me. It feels like a growth edge for me to like let go of structure a little bit and just go with the flow and have fun. Like I have a really hard time having fun. It's
Oh,
really hard
oh,
for
my
me.
serious friend.
I have seriously a hard time. And I'm just coming to understand it lately. If you're an astrology loving person, like Hilarie and I talk about astrology all the time. I have 3 huge planets in Capricorn in my 5th house, which is fun, like the fun and creative and childlike house. And I've got Capricorn and like a lot of stuff going on there. Neptune, Saturn, and Uranus. All
Wow.
trine my Taurus sun.
Mm.
So it's like very core to who I am, is this like serious fun. Like I'm still trying to figure out what exactly that even means.
I kind of love that.
Do
Like,
you?
yes, because I think that's such a powerful combination of being really serious about having fun.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
love that.
But it's like required for me to get serious about having fun at the same time. Like I can get really serious and like and I want to have more fun. I'm declaring it to the world and to you that it needs to happen. And it kind of leads into one of the notes that I wrote down about the safety zone. Because this is something I've been thinking a lot lately about, a relationship to safety and the way that a lot of personal growth and like success people and coaches and everyone, like the way that people talk about safety, I feel like can be so complicated. And you noticed that everybody has a different relationship to it, which I agree with. But I feel like it's related, for me at least, to having fun, because it makes my safety zone very serious, and getting fun into the day is kind of like, it stretches me. It's like it makes me worry that I'm not working hard enough, I guess. I have a Virgo South Node, which a wonderful astrologer, Marina Orms, woke me up to in a reading recently, that like it makes me very, it contributes to my independence and my want to do everything by myself and my resilience and like, you know, it's serious. It's like more serious stuff. And my North Node is in Pisces. So I'm like moving towards this more free-flowing emotional being who I genuinely am at my core, as we've also talked about. But I'm rambling here. Safety.
Well, I wanna say for the record, also, for those listening, that you are one of the hardest working people I know. So when you're talking about that, um, I I will forever, and I fully accept this, I will forever feel like I do not work as hard as you. And I don't think that's a bad thing. Because like you're such a powerhouse, and I'm like, I'll do that tomorrow. I'll roller skate.
No, I envy this about you, but I think you are the embodiment of fun, and that's part of what makes you successful. I know, like that's a big thing to say, that you are the embodiment of
It
fun.
is. I mean, I'll take it though. I try to have as much fun as I can, and I think that's before I was conscious of it. I think that's why I went into the line of work that I went into, is because energy to me feels like playtime, right? Like very serious play. That's what it feels like. And you know those kids, even when you were a kid, right, where you would get lost in your play. Like, it was such serious play. Whatever you were doing was just so consuming that nothing else existed beyond like those blocks or that world you created or that doll you had or that whatever it was, right? That everything just faded out. And I think that's what my work has always felt like is really serious play. And so that's why I wanted it and gravitated to it. Again, when it started, that was not conscious on my part. That has since become very conscious. Um, but that is definitely a huge part of my work. And I think it ripples out in that it has made me seek that feeling out everywhere,
Mhm.
right? And that sense of fun and that sense of play everywhere, um, which has led me to like my methods for growing my business, and it's led me to, um, my methods for choosing friends and choosing partners and choosing is like where can I find that very specific combination, right, of serious play.
Yeah. Oh my gosh,
Oh,
it's such a wonderful conversation. And I'll just like drop into the bucket that I'm noticing that money loves fun. I
oh
think
my
that
God.
money loves fun.
It does. It does.
It's, I
And I
know most successful times in my life, I've been having a shitload of fun, like a
yes.
lot of fun.
Yep. Yep. I totally agree. And I think because just like with anything, fun is attractive.
Mhm.
Play is attractive, right? When you see people having the time of their life, it doesn't even matter what they're doing. That's magnetic. That's
Yeah.
so magnetic, right? When it's genuine, right? When they're full of joy, it doesn't even matter what the thing is. What matters is that just like oozes out of them and you want to be around it. It's so, so attractive.
Mhm.
Um, and every energy is attracted to that, right? Time energy. It's why time slows down when you have fun,
Mm,
right? It's why you don't feel pressed when you're having fun, is because that relationship alters. And it's the same with money, right? It wants to be around that.
yeah. I love talking to you. It's just making me reflect on like fun in my life. And
Yeah.
I think it's easy to get swept away in like the not fun details when you feel like there's a lot of things that you need to do that aren't fun. So
Mm.
I'm like noticing how I just reached 5 years of self-employment at the beginning of
Congrats.
March. Thank you. Oh my gosh. And, hard earned, I feel like it's been a road for
Yeah,
sure.
it's not always a pleasure cruise.
No. Well, and I think it's like maybe I'm not awful at having fun as I would like to say, but like I've had times where fun was accessible, and these past 5 years have honestly not felt like that. It hasn't felt as fun as I expected it to, and it's starting
Mm.
to, because I am more and clear about what the work is that I'm doing, and like just engulfed and moving forward with doing that, as opposed to getting swept away in the details of like, I mean, there are so many details about building a business and having your legal things figured out and having, systems for customer service, which, is part of the work, I think, in what we do too. Like there can be some really valuable work just in the interaction even between proper sessions. But
Yeah.
all the things that like you don't want to do, that if you worked for a company, that they would be doing all of those things.
Sure.
I'm just witnessing, I guess, how this relationship with fun has unfolded.
Mm. Yeah, and something I ask myself all the time, and it took me a long time to figure out that I should be asking this question.
Mhm.
Um, because I agree, in the beginning with my business, I feel like I was being told so many things, and there were so many things I felt like I should do, and there was so much like put your head down and grind, right? Like hustle.
Oh yeah.
And to me, that none of that feels fun. Like that feels awful. Um, and so I eventually figured out that I should ask myself, like, how can this be more fun? How can this process of talking with my accountant be more fun? How
Mhm.
can this process of talking with my attorney be more fun? How can this, like, everything, can I run it through that filter of how could this be more fun, or how can I do less of it?
Yeah.
Right? How can I minimize this? How can I perhaps take it off of my plate altogether? Um,
And put it
and
on
so that's
someone's plate who it's super fun for.
who loves it, right? Because there's somebody in the world who loves it. And can I give it to them so that I can love not having it and they can love having it?
Yeah, absolutely.
um, yeah, and I think that's really how I've designed my business at this point, is that there's really nothing that I have to do that I don't want to do.
Yeah.
Um, and the things that I think at one point probably felt like a slog don't anymore, because I can zoom out and I can look at the big picture, right? When I talk for an hour with my accountant, what we're talking about is money, which is one of my favorite things.
Right.
Right? So if I have to move money around, that's so much fun.
Right.
Like, I love that. And so it's but I didn't always. And so I think it's really, that's been a really big part of my entrepreneurial journey, is how do I make this work fun? And I think as entrepreneurs, as business owners, we have a lot of agency when it comes to that. Like, if you're not having fun in your business, it's time for a wake up call, right? It's time for things to be redesigned, because if you own something and you design something and you don't like it and you don't have fun in it and it doesn't feel good, design something else, change the design. Or
Yeah.
go find something who does find someone who designed something that you like working in, right? Go find a job that feels really good, right? Because um I think sometimes people too, they get into business thinking that it's going to be a lot of fun, because they see like entrepreneurs working on the beach in Bali or something and they're like, that's what I'm going to do. And then 3 years in, they're like, fuck, I can't pay my bills still. And I am not on a beach in Bali. And it's like, yeah, because that's not super real. And also, maybe it's not what you actually want, right? If you haven't gotten that yet, maybe it's not what you actually want. It's just something that somebody showed you that looks sparkly on Instagram, right? Um, and so, one, how do you figure out how to get what you want and create it that way, right? You're the creator, create it that way, create it so it's fun, create it so it feels good, and be willing to recalibrate and redesign and scrap it and start from scratch if it's not feeling that way.
Yeah. It's so different than what society teaches us, or like what I feel that it taught me, I guess, my upbringing. I'm reflecting on the last 5 years since it's a landmark time, right?
Yeah.
And noticing it's kind of like being a new baby born into this whole new world. And I have been just trying to figure out how it works ever since I entered, which is like being a little baby. You know, you come into
Yeah,
the world and you try and figure out how it works.
totally.
And you organize information and you're hearing everybody tell you about what you need to do and what a business looks like. And you're sorting. And this approach that we're talking about is so different than at least the one. I think some people do take this approach the first time around, and those people are probably wildly successful and happy people. But like, I didn't get the message to, if you don't like something, do something different. It's like, if you don't like this, this is the way that it is, and just do it anyway. Just suck it up and shut up. And the way we're talking about is very different. And I'm grateful to be moving into the next 5 years more prepared and organized in the information I've received, to be like, okay, I understand fundamentally what needs to get done. How can I make this fun and make it my own and do it way sooner? I feel like it took me a very long time, probably like 23 years or so, to figure this out in my last life, which we'll call pre-entrepreneurial life, because it's just so totally different.
Yeah.
It's just so totally different, like unlearning all of the things that we learned that we needed to contribute to society in a meaningful way.
Yeah.
It's almost unfair.
Yeah, there's definitely a massive unlearning process for most people who become business owners. And I think most people who become adults,
Yeah.
right? Because we're taught so much crap when we're growing up, that doesn't apply to us or won't work for us. And so there's definitely a huge unlearning process. Um, and then the flip side of that is like, okay, now that I have weeded all of this stuff out, what do I actually want? How do I actually want to contribute? And how can I do that in a way that feels really good? And if there's no roadmap for this, how do I navigate that creation process in a way that also sustains me, right? In a way that pays my bills, in a way that makes me, that keeps me healthy, right? Like, taking into consideration all of those factors of your being, not just your business.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So important.
so important.
Well, and it's making me think about something else that I'm dying to talk to you about, because I've been doing a meditation retreat for the past 16 days, I would say.
Oh
So
yeah, you mentioned
this morning was the first day that I didn't have a morning class to go
that.
to. Like, it ended yesterday, and it was originally meant to be only a 7-day retreat, but they extended it for us and then are still offering continuing classes, which is rare. And I'm so grateful. This is with the Brahma Kumaris. They have a retreat center in the Catskills. It's beautiful.
Nice.
Highly recommend it. And part of why I love this organization is because I can feel when I engage with them, I can feel the spiritual connection. Like, I can feel that divine connection. I know that there's truth to what's being told, and that it is connecting me to something deeper. And the reason what we were just talking about made me think of this is because it's really connecting me with, like, who am I and what do I have to provide, and how can I just focus on providing that and say, kind of, fuck it to everything else. Like, does it really matter? Does anything really matter? Does it matter where I'm doing it or how I'm doing it or in what terms, and how much money I'm receiving, or like any of these things? If, as long as I'm connected with this, like, divine mission, if you will. I don't love that languaging, but it's like, this jewel inside of me that I have to give, and we all have that. And yeah, so I'm like dying to talk to you about this meditation retreat that I've been doing.
Okay.
So I'll share that one of the greatest things that meditating in this style of meditation called Raj Yoga that the Brahma Kumaris teach, they believe that our soul basically lives as a point of light in our forehead, third eye center.
Fascinating.
We have this soul, and it's connected to a larger source of light, and it drives our body. So, like, there are definitely things that I struggle with about this line of teaching. So maybe we can talk about that too. And I do find it super useful because, like I said, I can feel the truth in this, like the way that we have a soul, and that is what is energizing our body. It's really making me
Yeah.
think. And I'm all conscious wholeness. The course is all about mind, body, and energy. I'm always like playing with these things and trying to find better words to describe so that, everyone can connect to these power centers inside of themselves.
Yeah.
We have all of these resources to use, and our energy is one. So I guess, yeah, I wonder if anything resonates with you about that. Um, but may I also add that another really beneficial thing that they teach is meditating with eyes open.
Mm.
So the first retreat I went to there was years ago now, and it was all about combining spirit with body. It was called Spirituality in Motion. I highly recommend it.
Love that.
But this concept of meditating with eyes open just blew the top off for me in terms of bringing mindfulness and a meditative state into day-to-day activities such that I can take control of my physical responses, keep a clear mind, keep focused, even when life wants to distract and there are difficulties going on, as there will be. That being said, I'll just put my difficulties on the line too, and let's hash it out. And it relates, like, I think if I had gone to any other retreat the first time I had come into this group, so it was this spirituality and motion retreat, if it had been any other thing, I don't know that I ever would have continued with it, because I don't like the way that they communicate about the body.
Interesting.
And the thing is that I think that the way in practice that the teachers and heads of this organization think about the body is different than how it comes across to me when I'm teaching it. Like, the body is your best friend, sort of a thing. And I asked questions about this in the meditation retreat and was reassured and validated by the answer I got. I was like, okay, I can see that. Our soul is what's energizing our body, and that's fun to play with. I dig that.
Totally.
But the idea that body consciousness is bad rings through a lot of the teachings for me. And that's true for me with a lot of spiritual teachings. And, I think it can be rare to find teachings that truly connect to both the spiritual and the physical in a really healthy way. But I also feel that my body consciousness, which in the language, I think, is a barrier here. It's like I'm trying to communicate but part of why it matters to me is that I know my relationship with my body helps me implement the spiritual aspects. It helps me feel that spiritual connection and pull it into everything that I am, right? And I see so many people who are dying for this same kind of spiritual connection that have such a hard time accessing it because of this idea that the body is lesser than, and it creates so much body shame and things like that. So thanks for letting me just stand on a soapbox. Yeah.
My 111 alarm just went off.
Wonderful. What do we do at 111?
I just like seeing it. I just like seeing all the numbers. Um,
That's wonderful.
yeah, and I think most people in the Western world, at least, grew up in some kind of religion that also um, shamed their bodies, made their bodies full of sin, made their bodies less than soul. Um, you know, most modern religions are very hierarchical, and the body is at the bottom of the barrel. And and so I think they're, as people who then turn into spiritual adults, there's a fair amount of unlearning that has to happen of that. And um, to be honest, I think most people, most spiritual people like you and I, right, who we're not practicing an organized religion, um, means that it can be really, really difficult to find those right fit conversations, because there is no like universal well that we can go to.
That's what I'm trying to create in conscious wholeness.
Yeah,
Record.
like maybe we can go to a great yoga class, right? Or maybe we can go to a retreat that has that. But I think that um that whole conversation that brings in our bodies as just as divine as our soul, right? Like just as miraculous and wonderful and fun, does not um or is very challenging to find.
Yeah.
Really challenging to find. And I think everybody's also kind of at a different place with their bodies, again, especially in the Western world where our bodies are so objectified. Everybody is so objectified. Um, and so many constraints and expectations are placed upon the body, that it can be a real challenge to then step into a spiritual conversation about the body when you've just had like so many messages thrown at you about like how you should look and how you should feel and how you should smell and how you should move and like all of that, how you should dress it and how you should hold it and how everything, right? Like we're just bombarded with that constantly. um, and then to make that shift into a different conversation and struggle to find that conversation places, um, can be really challenging.
That's hard.
Yeah, it can be hard.
And it's, I'm grateful that I come to that study with such a deep love for my body,
Mm,
but that was very hard earned,
yeah.
very hard earned over time. And I just wonder sometimes, it seems to me that the body is generally the last place that people want to go. So it almost becomes like a convenient escape
Mm,
to connect in a spiritual way that uh, makes the body less than, because it gives us a really good excuse to say that doesn't matter.
yeah, like spiritual bypassing for the body.
Right. I feel like that's the core of spiritual bypassing. I feel like it's so related, just this unwillingness to be in one's body and to respect bodies in general, I suppose. To respect the feelings of a body that's not yours,
Mm,
or to respect the feelings in your own body. Like, not a lot of people have that nailed,
definitely not.
but it's so important to nail.
So important. And I think um, because it opens up so much, right? It opens up so much information. It opens up access to so much power and understanding. And I think it also opens up a lot of compassion for other people, right? When we're disconnected from our body, it's a lot easier to judge other people for what's going on in their life Because if we aren't connected to what our nervous system is doing and we aren't connected to how our body is feeling, I think that gives a lot of people license, like it feels like they have permission to judge someone else.
Mm-hmm.
But when you are really attuned to yourself and you're really attuned to your body, it becomes really, really difficult to judge other people because you're like, oh my God, all of a sudden, like I have all of this happening all the time. So, like, how can I point a finger at you and say, like, get your shit together when I have so much going on here myself? Right. So, I think it just makes us more compassionate individuals too um, when we're connected to our physicality, to our body.
Yeah. It's a huge missing link.
Mm.
And I guess I just am shouting it from the rooftops right now. Like, that's one of my biggest takeaways from this meditation retreat that genuinely does have me feeling great.
That's
And
awesome.
like, I need to start every day with meditation.
Yeah.
It's nice having done it for so many days in a row because it truly hammered home the point for me that this is a non-negotiable thing that you must do every morning.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, like, this is the way you start the day and this is the way you end the day, because this is how you're going to receive the directions, the only directions that matter.
Yes, totally. And I think it makes it easier throughout your day to hear yourself
Mm-hmm.
when you've taken the time to sit down and connect.
Yeah.
And I love that idea of, I love the practice of open eye meditation.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't know about you, but when and this is something that I've been playing with for a long time, so I don't see it as like a fault in my meditation practice. But when I have a closed eye meditation, it is really easy for me to like fly off into the stratosphere. Like I can really easily astral project,
Mm-hmm.
and I can really easily leave my body. And some of that is from years of, disassociating to an extent, right? And
Sure.
experiencing trauma and having kind of overdeveloped that muscle of being able to leave my body.
Yeah.
Um, and so the first time I experienced an open eye meditation, I was like, oh my God, I'm still here. Like I can stay here and meditate. Like I can like be in the temple of my body and meditate and not fly out and not leave. And I think that was now I'm getting a lot better at being able to close my eyes and stay.
Mm-hmm.
But I was never able to do that until I practiced open eye meditation. Um, and I think that's really great for someone, especially like who's a beginner,
Mm-hmm.
who said, because I'm sure you hear this all the time too, like, oh, I can't meditate.
Yeah.
I'm bad at it.
Mhm. People who have been spending a lot of time trying to meditate.
Right,
At
right.
a certain point, it's like, that you just are
Yeah.
meditating.
Like there's no, it happens and you're doing it right no matter what. Like as long as you're sitting there, like you're
Practice is
meditating.
everything, right?
Yeah, like
Yeah.
oh my gosh.
Exactly.
So funny.
Yeah. A lot of
Uh,
people feel that they can't do
yeah.
it. And for me, I don't think that that has anything to do with the spiritual connection. I think that's the body
Yeah.
that is making it impossible to truly relax,
Mm,
let the thoughts subside. Like,
yeah.
I have it's like all of these things flow so seamlessly into each other, but I always find myself trying to categorize because it's just the way that my mind works. But I really see the mind as being part of the body, like the brain in itself, the ways that we're storing information in our head is a physical body thing.
Mm,
And we have to be able to clear the way, like scoop the stuff out of that channel so that it can really get through and penetrate. And we need to be able to relax to allow it to really, again, penetrate who we are.
Yeah. Well, and I think that is such a key thing, is relaxation.
Mm.
I can't tell you how many times I have a conversation with a client in which I ask, when was the last time you truly felt relaxed?
Mm.
And they can't give me an answer. They don't know. They can't even identify and if they can, it was like probably 12 years ago when I went on that vacation. And I'm like, oh my God, 12 years ago was the last time you can remember a felt sense of relaxation. And I think that is like an epidemic in our culture. We don't know how to relax. We're not taught how to relax.
Mm.
We don't have structures in our culture that support relaxation on like a daily basis.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny because I remember I come from a very active family. So mom, dad, Liz, if you're listening to this, my sister.
Hey,
I come
Liz.
from oh yeah, I've talked with Brianna before about you.
I know, I'm like, Liz, if you're listening, I love you. I don't know you, but hope to meet you someday soon. The pandemic is over.
Yeah, I come from a very active family. We're not big relaxers, and so it was interesting. I remember we went on a family vacation to Paris, and it was to celebrate one of my birthdays and my sister's graduation. And it was, we were very excited, and there were all these things we wanted to do, and we did do a whole bunch of things. And there was this one morning when we got breakfast, and I think Liz and I spent some of the morning, and maybe our mom too, shopping and just like, hanging out in Paris. And I was like constantly noticing how many people were just like sitting around. And I remember going into a store and like noticing someone at a cafe. And we were in the store for 20, 30 minutes. And that person was still just sitting in a chair at that cafe, not talking with anybody else, not eating a meal, just sitting at a cafe. I think that was the first time I like really saw a culture that knew how to relax.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is weird. These people are just like sitting around. And I remember experiencing how foreign that felt.
Mm-hmm.
Because that, in the United States, that's especially in the Northeast. We're both in New York.
Mm-hmm.
And even though we're not in the city, I think even that vibe is still very evident of like, we live in a colder climate, we hustle. We stay on the move.
Through the winter. You really got to keep it moving.
Gotta keep it moving. Otherwise,
Yeah.
your circulation's gonna slow down. You're gonna get really cold. Keep it moving. And so so I was so fascinated by that experience. And that's something that I've sort of held with me ever since, of how do I unlearn my tension? How do I unlearn my constant motion? How do I unlearn my busy brain, right? And my worry habit, and learn how to relax and let my body develop that as a skill. And that's something that, especially since I started doing energy work, because it's very evident in a field that's tense, right? It's like that's I can practically like taste the tension, right? I can feel it on my hands. I can feel it like through my rib cage when I'm in someone's field. It almost feels like someone put a corset on me.
Mm.
when I step into someone's field who's really tense. And so that's been something that I've been playing with and practicing ever since, of like, how do I move that through my field? How do I metabolize that tension? How do I let it go? How do I alchemize it into something else? Like, can I use that energy? Because it takes a lot of energy to stay tense,
Oh yeah, it's
right?
exhausting.
Yeah. And so, how can I use that energy, which is clearly there, right? Being eaten up by that tension? Can I take that energy and can I reroute it? Can I invite it to go somewhere else? Can I invite it to do a different function in my field? Um, yeah. And I think that's such an important, even if we don't use that language, that's such an important conversation to have, of how do we train ourselves? How do we let ourselves relearn how to relax?
Yeah, I love that. The lightness of that approach, and I'm feeling called to share my experience with relaxation because it feels different and more laden with tension. Um, because I feel like as a person, you've noticed that I'm a hardworking person, but as a physical body, I am slow. Like I and we've talked about this. I'm a lot slower in a lot of ways than you are,
Mm.
in the sense that I need some time to sink into an idea. And then once I'm in there, oh man, baby, am I there? And it's going to take me a little time to come out to. So you better give me a heads up and I'll start coming back, but like I am more of a slow burn, and that burn can grow to be really large and powerful, but I'm a slower moving being. I hate being rushed. I absolutely hate being rushed. And I've got a lot of earth in my chart. I'm Taurus. I've got that Capricorn thing going on. And then the Virgo over with my South Node, my South Node is conjunct my rising sign. So it's like I still am figuring out what that means, but like it's significant. So all of the earth is happening for me.
Yeah.
But my family is different. So my family is all like your family was. My dad was a Marine. My mom is just like, try and pin that woman down. And mom, you might be listening to this and I love you, but it's true. Like there have been times where I will beg, like, mom, just sit down and be with me. And she's like running around the house, she's doing her chores, she's doing her thing.
Yep.
And it's my mom, and my brother is
Yeah, I think your mom and my
too.
mom would get along really well.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
All
Someday,
over the
maybe
place.
we'll all get together, and that would be a trip.
Yeah, it would.
Oh, I can't wait. It's totally going to happen. But yeah, no. So I feel like my relationship with relaxation is that I used it to make myself wrong for a really long time. That like I will lay on a couch. I could sit at a cafe all day and do nothing, and it would probably be the most lovely, luxurious day of my whole life. That sounds amazing.
Yeah.
But like in my upbringing, there was also just this tension of like everyone around me wants me to move way faster than I genuinely want to move. So as you were talking about that, I was noticing how the relation has grown complicated for me. Like to truly let myself relax, it's almost like I've built a huge like protective shield of hard work that
Mm.
justifies my ability to just do it the way I want to do it, which is like slower and more relaxing and more just physical. What's the word that I'm looking for? Indulgent, a little physically indulgent. Let me slow down and smell the flowers and just gaze at the beauty of the sky today. And like that just is amazing. now I'm full ramble mode and like standing out on a cliff where I don't know where I was meant to be. But
Well, so what that makes me think of is I think it comes from jujitsu. And they say, slow is smooth and smooth is fast.
Right.
Right?
Well,
And I
that's
love
exactly
that.
it. Yes. Well,
Yeah.
that's been my experience. It's like the slower I go, genuinely, the faster I'm moving because
Yeah.
it just feels good. And
Yep.
I'm attentive to the details that need to be attended to, and I'm attending to them with love and slowly. But I'm not, when I'm truly allowing myself to do that, I'm not rushing out the door without forgetting 5 things that I have to turn back around and do, it's like, it's efficient. It's I had a cousin say to me once, you just go faster than other people." It was the funniest thing she said at like a family gathering. She was like, "You just go really fast, like faster than anyone I've ever met." And I was like, "Thank you." It was a compliment. It was meant to be a compliment, but
Yeah.
it's this um it's contradictory, right?
Mhm.
But I think that's the where all the beauty in life lies, is being able to do two things that are completely different at the same time. And that's
Yeah.
like an example of going fast and slow.
Totally. Totally. Um, and for me, I feel almost like the opposite. Like when and our charts are very different in that way because like I have so much freaking air,
Mm. And I
right?
have very little.
I am just like a windstorm.
I love it. And I'll just
Right?
stand here on the earth and like breeze by me, and it's the most amazing thing.
And so when I unleash myself and let myself go fast, that's when it's almost like I have to like let all of that like burn off, and then I can feel really peaceful and really calm, and I can move really slow. And then like this new round of energy will come and I have to burn it off. Like I have to let it go. And when I run into trouble is when I try to leash that.
Mm.
And so like if I get in my own way, if I self-sabotage, if I whatever, right? Um, and I don't let myself go fast and burn off all that energy, and like blow it out of my field, it's really difficult for me to relax because it's like all of that energy is just like blowing around inside me, like rattling around inside me.
Yeah.
And it's like impossible for me to find my footing, to feel grounded.
Yeah. I'm curious about what that looks like, going fast to burn off energy, because, and correct me if I'm wrong, it sounds like that initial burst that has to burn off might not necessarily be the most focused energy that you're trying to work with, or is it?
It actually is really focused.
Okay. So it's like a
Um,
lot of action
it's
that's
a
really
lot of action.
focused.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's like, um, what can I liken it to? It's like, think about like multiple crescendos in
Mm.
an orchestra, right? Like when they like build up to that like full blast and they're just like going and going and going and going, right? But it is like so on point, right? And they're so loud and so fast that they have to be so precise. Otherwise, it'll like unravel into a huge mess, right? That's what it feels like. It feels like I am that orchestra at that crescendo. Um, and I have to be so focused and so precise. Otherwise, it like goes off the rails and it's not fun. Right.
Yeah.
But if I ride that, right, if I'm in it, it is like it's fucking magic.
It's reminding me of like multiple orgasms.
Yes.
How it
Yes.
has to be just the right touch when you're
Yeah.
there to keep it going,
Right. Like it's
or else
so,
it'll fall.
there's like a precision to it.
Yeah,
Totally. Totally. And if it's right, God, it's right.
yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it feels like that. And
I
then I
love
can
that
come,
this is the most explicit interview that I've done so far.
I
But
mean, are you surprised? It's
no,
me and you.
yeah, get used to it, listeners. Probably we're having more
I
fun on
mean,
this podcast.
to
I
be
said,
fair, I don't know that you and I have ever had a conversation longer than an hour that didn't involve some discussion of an orgasm.
yeah. I mean, no.
I don't think.
There's probably a lot more talk of orgasms than like a lot of other. We talk about orgasms and money
And money.
a lot.
Which, like, come on. Is there anything more fun to talk about than that?
I mean, not that's coming to mind. So, no, I have a lot of fun in our conversations. But yeah, the precision that you're noticing of the crescendo, like that is so beautiful. And you're somebody who's really opened me up to like using the wonderful world of YouTube. I remember once you recommended to me to watch videos of people dancing. It's reminding me of like the precision that if you take one wrong step while you're flying around, you're dropping someone on their head.
Totally.
And
Or
that's
yourself, right? You're falling. And it definitely feels like that. And for me, the practice is like letting myself unleash. Because I have a tendency to rein myself in
yeah.
and be like, that's too much. That's too, like that fire is going to burn too hot. That wind's going to burn, it's going to blow too hard. Like maybe you'll be too much. Maybe this is too much. And I'll get in my head about it and I'll rein myself in. But so the practice is really letting myself off the leash and setting down those reins. And I grew up horseback riding, and that was something that we practiced. Like when I learned to canter, I remember one of the first things that my riding instructor asked me to do. Right, I had just mastered this new thing, and we were going the fastest I'd ever gone on a horse. Right, and I came around a curve in the arena, and she goes, "I want you to set your reins down." And I remember being like, like, oh my God, I'm going to die. Right. Like I'm on this massive animal. And she just asked me to like, basically like set down your control.
Yeah. Wow.
Right. Like all of that holding back, put it down for a second and just see what happens.
Wow. How was that?
I mean, it was luckily I was on a horse that I knew and loved and really, really trusted. And I think that's comparable to like, I trust myself a lot now. And so it's easier to let myself off that leash because I trust myself and I trust life.
Yeah.
And I don't think it would have worked as well on a horse that I didn't love and trust.
Yeah.
But I set those reins down and, when you're riding that like gives the horse his or her head back. So instead of holding their head up, they sort of take it back and they lower it a little and move into just like a slightly more natural rhythm for them. And you can't like it takes that holding piece out of the equation. And so all you can do is feel it. Right? All you can do is like try to keep your seat and feel that rhythm. And so it forces you to put your focus elsewhere. And I think for me, and this is probably true for a lot of people who have a lot of air dominant in their chart and in their life, it's a lot easier if you don't fight it. Right? Like give into that, ride that wave, like fly, catch that thermal in the air, right? Instead of trying to control it instead of trying to hold it back.
Yeah. Well, I think that's something that we can all benefit from. I've been thinking about it a lot lately, like controlling the situation can take us in some really convoluted directions that are
Really.
just totally unnecessary.
And I think sometimes we do that in the name of focus,
Mm-hmm.
right? In the name of like trying to get all the steps right.
Mm-hmm. Working
When,
plan.
yeah, right. When I think, in fact, focusing and getting all the steps right happens much more effortlessly when we let go than when we try, right? Because if you ask a dancer, were you thinking about every single footstep that you made? No.
No.
No, they're feeling it. They're feeling it all, right? That's not, they're not saying, okay, I need to do this now, and then I need to go to the right, and then I need to make two steps. Well, they're past that. They're not calculating anymore, right? And I think sometimes people get confused between wanting to be focused and precise versus have control.
Yeah.
Right? They're not the same thing.
Let's hash that out. Sounds hard.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think it is once you're doing it. I think it is when you're trying to do it.
Yeah, it's like precision is harnessing those intricacies that the flow opens itself up to.
Mm. And there's an intuition to it, right?
Hmm.
There's a muscle memory to it. So I think sometimes you need to learn some stuff before you do that, right? Just like dancers learn a lot before they pull off something that looks effortless, right?
Right.
And so sometimes it takes a lot of practice. Um, but I think that there has to be, and I think even in your body, sometimes you can feel that difference between like I'm really focused and precise right now, but I don't have a hard grip on this,
Hmm.
right? Versus I'm gripping this really hard, but I'm also not being very focused or precise, right? And I think that's a good question to ask of like, if you feel like you're gripping something really hard, if you feel like you're trying to control something, ask yourself, are you able to carry out some precision? Are you able to be focused at the same time? Or is that control overriding everything else?
Yeah. Because it takes so much energy to control and grasp and hold.
Yeah, it does. It does. Yeah.
It's like doesn't leave anything left.
No, there's not a lot of wiggle room.
No, no. I can be a grasper, man, for
Oh,
sure.
God. You and me both.
Yeah.
I love to hold on.
Gosh. And
Yeah.
why? You know?
Yeah. I mean, for me, I know that a vast majority of the time it comes from fear,
Yeah.
right? I tend to be sometimes afraid of my bigness,
Mm.
right? Like that wind can be overwhelming.
Yeah.
um if I think that it's not me, right? It's almost like I have to separate myself from it, and then I'm like, "Oh my god, look at that," right? Whereas if it's just in me and I let myself embody it and have it, then I'm doing it rather than looking at it. And then it becomes much more manageable. But when I see my contribution, my gifts, my bigness, right, in any way
Mhm.
as something almost like outside myself,
Mhm.
forget it. Right? I'm like, holy shit. That's too much.
Too big, too much.
Too big, too much. Reel it in.
Yeah. I know it does the same. I'm hearing like the comfort zone again.
Yeah, totally.
I think it makes me feel really safe and comfortable to be under the illusion that I can control anything at all.
I mean, I think that's why we have that mechanism, right? Is because like it's such a great way to self-soothe. right? Is to give into that illusion of control. Like, well, if I can control this, then like, oh, it's going to be okay.
Yeah, totally. Well, and like a nod to the fact that it can be a trauma response too. Genuinely.
1,000%. Yeah, right. And that there's nothing actually wrong with that.
Mm-mm.
Because like we're human and we're gonna ebb and flow out of that no matter what. Like we can't eradicate our desire for control. We can't eradicate our fear. We can't eradicate our ego. I saw somebody post on Instagram the other day about something about like ego death or getting rid of the ego and being like, have you gotten rid of yours? And I was like,
No.
what?
No thanks.
Oh my gosh, it was just hilarious. And it actually made me so sad because I was like, why? Why are we ever having conversations about trying to get rid of something inside of us like that versus learn how to make friends with
Yeah.
it? Right? Like learn mastery of it. That's such a more rich skill to have and so much more power in that than like, oh, I'm just going to like root this out of my system, which one is impossible as long as you're still human.
Yeah.
And which so you're toiling at an impossible task, right? And two, it's so much less fun. Like that's a part of who you are. Like why not learn how to leverage it and how to befriend it instead of how to get rid of it?
Absolutely. I could not agree with you more. I didn't want to send you. I made a TikTok video yesterday that touched on this, experimenting with TikTok in my conscious wellness business.
You know, I only use TikTok for one thing.
I know. Do you want to share what it is?
Yeah, yeah.
I think everybody relates. This is like a TikTok thing, right?
Is it a TikTok thing?
That people love hot lesbians on.
I mean, I guess it is a thing. That's all I use it for is hot lesbians. And not just no, I should also clarify like pretty butch lesbians too.
Okay.
Like that's
Yes.
that's my niche, right? I want like trans guys. I want butch girls.
Love it. Love it. Maybe we can link to some of those favorites in the comments as well.
There are some winners out there for sure.
Oh yeah. Well, no, but in all seriousness, I made a TikTok video yesterday and I'm gonna send it to you because just so that you always love up everything that I do. And it feels
everything that you do.
oh, you're so sweet. Well, and this is part of me trying to have more fun, right? And be a little bit more free flowing, I guess, with just like being silly and doing it wrong. And like TikTok, I feel way too old and dorky to do TikTok. And that's probably true. I'm like a little weird.
Not true. There's no such thing.
But in my TikTok video, I nodded to the fact, and we've talked about this so many times, that trying to reject any part of yourself is so, it's honestly rude. It's not very self-loving.
Mm.
And all of these parts of us have such a valuable contributions that they can make.
And I think it makes everything take longer.
Yeah.
Right? Like when you deny some part of yourself, it's still there. It still needs to be integrated and it's going to hang out there, still needing to be integrated until you do it. So, like, it's so much more efficient to just go with that instead of trying to deny it.
Yeah. This is a big part of reducing judgment too. We talked earlier about how loving our own bodies does a lot to take away judgment about what other people must be feeling. I've been thinking about judgment a lot recently because I think there's a lot to go around right now.
Yeah.
But it's not helpful. And this is another area I find that if we're judging somebody else, I would bet you like 999 times out of 100, if not 100 out of 100, but I like to cover my bases. I don't like to make guarantees that I don't, I could be wrong. But generally, there's something going on that you're judging about yourself that you've determined is not okay for you to share with the world. So you absolutely do not think that is okay for that person to be doing.
Yeah.
And we just like shove these little parts of ourselves away so that, but they're steering the ship.
Yeah. That particularly comes to mind with unmet needs, right? When we see someone having a need met visibly, publicly, right? So, say like on social media, right? And we're not getting that need met, it is, I think, so easy to jump to judge that person if that is still like unconscious or unmet, and we judge that in ourselves, like, how dare you need that much attention, or how dare you need that much affection, or how dare you need that much validation or encouragement or love or whatever, right? And so then we're going to pass that same judgment onto someone who is maybe lavishing encouragement, right? Or so incredibly loved, right? Or has a partner who's really affectionate or whatever, right? Like, we're going to slip into that judgment for sure, because we're not letting ourselves acknowledge perhaps the vastness of that unmet need.
Yeah, and so slippery, because as long as we're judging it that way, we will never let ourselves experience the fulfillment of the need.
Totally. And I think that can be a really tough path to traverse, right? Recognizing that that need is unmet, recognizing that it's going to need to be met, right? And recognizing that we might have to get really uncomfortable initially, right? In order to have that need met, we might have to rejigger what our insides look like or what our life looks like in order to get that need met and allow that need to be met.
Yeah. We have been skirting around this comfort zone conversation the whole time. I'm like, I need to sink my teeth into this.
Let's do it.
Because it's one of those both and situations, ultimately, I think, right?
Yeah.
It's like, we need to feel safe. On a very fundamental core level, humans need to feel safe to be able
Absolutely.
to be efficient in life.
Sure. Otherwise, we're just, that triple warmer is always going to be activated, right? We're going to always be in that like fight, flight, freeze, or fawn.
Yeah. And there is so much value in stretching ourselves to do things that feel really uncomfortable. And ultimately, we need to find a balance between these two things. But everybody knows somebody on either side of the spectrum, right? Somebody who needs safety so much that they never go anywhere. I think probably a large amount of the population might fit into that category, and there's no harm in that either. Like, we won't travel down that road, I guess, but what I feel, there's no problem with a life that that benefits from the comfort of like a day-to-day job, and like doing the whole, married picket fence, boy and girl, cat and dog sort of a life. Like, there's a lot of comfort, I imagine, in that. But for some people, here's another little layer to it. For some people, that's the scariest fucking thing. Like, that is outside of the comfort zone for many other people, probably the listeners of this podcast, to be honest. Like, that's a little bit scarier. but how there's so many like interesting avenues, I guess, to go here. And I wonder if there's a certain approach that you use when it comes to this whole comfort zone idea and stretching yourself. Like, how do you decide what stretches are the ones that need to be taken? And because I know that I have thoughts, but no, I'm not, I can share them too, but
I mean, please do.
yeah, how do you
Um,
manage this?
yeah, so it's different, I think, for different areas of my life. So it's not like a method across the board.
Mhm.
Because I feel like um, there's the practice of my business of working with my clients, which is always like pushing into like outside my comfort zone because I'm always doing something different, right? I'm always doing something new. I'm always being asked to sort of stretch that skill for my clients. And so that feels like it's in a really healthy place for me because it sort of naturally ebbs and flows between the two. Um, I have to be a little bit more firm with myself when it comes to the tactical part of my business, um, like the structure holding part of my business. And so that tends to be very intentional when I stretch there. Um, and oh,
Are we talking about like reaching out to people or the
um,
way you're setting up your system?
yeah, like when I set up systems, when I launch something new, when I grow in a different way. So, like, I try a new kind of networking or, something like that.
Mhm.
Um, or I hire someone to help me with something. That all tends to be um, like very strategic and intentional. So it doesn't have quite as much of the same like organic ebb and flow. It's more like, okay, here's this thing that's outside my comfort zone and I feel called to it,
Mhm.
right? So like my gut says, I have an inner knowing that says this is for you.
Mhm.
And then I like have to unleash myself. I have to let myself go to that thing, even though it's outside my comfort zone and do whatever that thing is.
Mhm.
Um, and so, and then I think that happens kind of similarly in other areas of my life too, where like I will feel a pull to something that's outside those boundaries of comfort.
Mhm.
Like this apartment, right? We're going to circle back to that. Like moving feels outside my comfort zone.
Mhm.
Um, and so I think a huge part for me is acknowledging how uncomfortable that is.
Mhm.
And reminding myself that just because it's outside my comfort zone and it is uncomfortable and it might seem scary, it doesn't actually mean that I'm necessarily in danger.
Right.
Right? Like I can, because it does, it feels really scary. And I think we can sometimes wrap that into, well, if I'm scared, I'm in danger. Right? We have that sort of natural connection between the two. And I find it really helpful to remind myself, like actually say, verbalize to myself, you're scared right now, but you're not in danger.
Yeah.
And that I find that really, really helpful.
Yeah.
You're scared right now, but you're not in danger. And then I also really love reminding myself that fear is just excitement without the breath,
Mm.
right? Like if you're feeling really scared about this thing, you're actually really excited. You just need to fucking breathe.
Yeah. Well, that's why I was like intrigued by the fact that I was so nervous to do this podcast episode
Yeah.
you, which is didn't make any sense that I was so nervous that I felt, but fear is excitement without the breath. I love that.
I love that.
And
I
I
love
think it speaks to the importance of body mastery again. being
Yes.
able to really recognize, oh, my body is having a fear response right now.
Yeah. Yeah. And you can't always think your way out of that. Right?
No.
Your mind can't always think your way out of that. Sometimes you actually have to talk to your body and be in your body and deal with that physical response that's happening.
Yeah. Generally, your mind thought your way into it.
Yeah, exactly.
You
Right?
got to kind of be like, I've got all my limbs, I'm keeping them, I'm,
Right.
and even if you didn't have all of your limbs, like I've got my person, I
Right.
am
Right. I'm intact.
alive. I'm breathing still. There's another thing I can do to bring myself more in line with the person that I want to be.
Yeah.
And we're back to control. I have the ability to control my breath. I have the ability to slow my thoughts, but it comes with practice.
It does. For sure. For sure. And being able to recognize when you're in that, like sometimes I just think identifying it is powerful of like, I feel this way because I'm stepping outside my comfort zone or because I don't have enough breath happening in my body right now.
Mm-hmm.
Which means there's something like sometimes just the acknowledgement of that can be really powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it kind of speaks to the way that I approach comfort zone,
Yeah.
which is, it's like I'm trying to expand it,
Yeah.
I will do something that's outside of my comfort zone, but the very next thing that I want to do is genuinely make myself feel as comfortable as possible
Yeah.
in that spot
Yeah.
outside of my comfort zone,
Yeah.
you know?
Mhm.
That's to
Yeah.
me what builds flexibility,
Yeah.
as opposed to this just mad dash to do as many crazy things as I fucking can before it all hits me and like snaps me back, smack
Yeah.
dab into the middle of my original comfort zone,
Right. Right. Yeah. Mm. Yeah, I love that idea that, and this kind of circles back to the boundary thing of like your boundary of where your comfort zone is should be flexible.
Mm-hmm.
It's not fixed. It's not a wall that you have to like bust through every time you want to do something outside of it, right? It's something that you can stretch. It's something that can be flexible.
Yeah.
Um, and I think I love something that you just said too about wanting to be comforted afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's so actually incredibly healthy is to like, I'm going to step outside and I'm going to challenge myself and I'm going to do something that's scary, but good for me. Right. And then I'm going to let myself be comforted afterwards. Right. I'm going to let myself regulate afterwards. That's so healthy. That's so healthy. I was talking with a client the other day, and she said to me, she was like, 'cause she's doing like a lot of reach outs that feel really uncomfortable for her, like cold calling and sending emails to people she doesn't know and stuff like that. And she was like, I wish someone could just like hug me after every time I made a phone call. And I was like, that is it right there. Like that makes total sense, right? I'm going to step out here and I'm going to do this scary thing and then I'm going to regulate and then I'm going to do it again and then I'm going to regulate, right? It's like having that touch point to come back to. Um yeah, I think that's so powerful is to learn that we can shift between the two.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have to stay in one area or the other and we're not failing if we step outside our comfort zone and then need to be comforted afterwards.
Yeah, no.
Like that's being very consciously human.
Mm-hmm.
That is not failing.
And it's both and,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It's like, and it's just the human condition. We're always safe as long as we're alive, and we're never safe
Yeah,
as
exactly.
long as we're
Right?
alive.
And we can exert an immense amount of control over our experience and we also have no control.
Right. How
Right?
maddening.
Yeah. Yeah. I love
I
that.
love the circular nature of this conversation because I feel like it's leading just so perfectly into what might be our last topic. We'll see. But I would be remiss if I didn't talk to you about energetic communication with your business. That's
Mm,
one of the main reasons that I knew a conversation would be so valuable for everyone listening. And the reason that talking about boundaries made me think it was circling back perfectly is because I know firsthand the way that you take communication with your business so seriously. Because I've had the pleasure of having your business set boundaries with me,
mm.
which I just think is magical and but I guess I'm just like filling in that bridge for anybody who's like, how does that even relate? Which probably nobody was thinking at all.
No, because you've had the experience of it.
But I think it is very it speaks to not only the ways that we set boundaries as friends, the initial conversation that we had, but the ways that we can communicate with our business energetically and allow that feedback and allow boundaries to be just a natural part of the conversation. So, geez, is there anything popping to mind for you before I fumble to try and form a question?
Well, the first thing that comes to mind is like, I admire my business's boundaries. I feel
Yeah.
like I feel like it has better boundaries than I do. And I think partially because my business doesn't have any of my baggage, right? It didn't grow up with trauma, right? It doesn't have any, it's not carrying any of that, right? And
Right.
so it naturally, like from its beginnings, has had really beautiful boundaries. Even when I wasn't great at enforcing them, it's had really, really beautiful boundaries, and really healthy boundaries, and really like strong boundaries. Um, and so I actually think a huge part of the process of me being in communication with my business was it teaching me its boundaries.
I'm wondering what that looked like. So, if you weren't always great at honoring your business's boundaries, I wonder how that was playing out in
Mm,
the realm of your business and your experience with it.
yeah. So some of that was like, around money, like not charging what I needed to be charging, or not holding people to payments, which was that was early, early, early on.
Mhm.
Um, and then or like offering my work for free,
Mhm.
which I did a little bit on someone else's recommendation, right? Not on my own, right? Because they didn't understand my work. And so they were like, well, maybe you should offer it for free so people can get a feel for it.
Mm.
Right. And my business was like, oh, hell on earth, no. Right. Like that was like hard pass.
I can relate to this. I feel like
Right.
that's advice that a lot of new business owners get.
Totally. Especially if their work is like even slightly on the esoteric side, right? Everybody loves to say, like, oh, like do it for free for a while, right? Even in coaching programs, coaches will say, like, do your, offer as many free sessions as you can for the first month or whatever. And so of course somebody told me that and I was like, okay, right? Like I'm hard to understand, and it just like played into that story of like, you're such a weirdo, you're on the outside, like you need to like tamp this down so that people can stomach it.
Yeah. Like, is this
Right.
even valuable anyway?
Exactly. And of course my business was like, give me a break, like don't even bring that near me, get that out of my face. Right. Like, and Hilarie, right, me was like, okay. That makes total sense.
Oh God.
Right?
Well, and speaking of boundaries, like especially with esoteric healing,
Oh my
energetic work where you're
God.
in someone's field,
Yeah.
you have
Never
so
that, like, to me, it is like, would you ever go to a doctor for free? Like an unpaid doctor? Not a doctor who is getting paid by somebody else, right? Like an insurance company, but a doctor who is just like, sure, I'll set that bone in an alley for free. Like, no, does that seem safe?
no. But
No.
can I devil's advocate? Because there is a part of me, and maybe it's wrong, but there's a part of me that's like, if I came across a doctor that was so compelled to treat my broken ankle in an alleyway just because he happened to cross me and he wasn't getting paid for it, but it was just his calling to doctor me,
Mm.
then like, I guess it would be a judgment call, right? It's
Well,
like,
but then I think there's like a feeling, right? And there isn't, it also doesn't sound like this doctor is someone who's free all the time,
no, he
right?
was like
There was
walking
just like an
down the street.
immediate need in that moment, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's different than like essentially what would be like a homeless doctor who's just like, hey, I found some thread. You want me to sew up that cut for you? Like,
Let me practice my doctoring.
like I'll go to the clinic over there. Thanks. Right? Like that's sketchy. That's sketchy. And I think there's a lot of sketchy in the wellness and spirituality world.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think there's a lot of sketchy. Um, and so that is something that I think I did maybe one free session and was like, this feels gross.
Mm.
I'm never doing this again. Right. And I could feel me and my business like sync up. Right. Like, oh, okay. It doesn't actually matter what that person says because what they're saying about people not understanding my work is what they think,
Yeah.
not the reality that I'm living in. Um, and so, and I still have people like even now who, um, like their response to, you know, asking, like, what else do you do? Basically, like, what's your full-time job? Right. And I'm like,
Because
this,
most energy healers
don't do
do.
this full time.
No. Yeah.
Yep. Um, and I'm like, yeah, this is my full-time job. And it's been my full-time job for 5 years and my job for 8 years. So it's going well. um, and there's still that element of like, really? Like, are you sure? Are you sure that it's your full-time job? Are you sure you're not doing anything else? Because they don't get it.
Yeah.
Right? That individual doesn't get it. And I think it's really easy to have experiences like that and just assume that most of the world thinks that way. Well, you don't need most of the world to buy your service. You just need the right amount for you,
Mm-hmm.
which is in the grand scheme of how many human beings are on the planet, a teeny tiny fraction of them need to vibe with you. And that's it.
Yeah.
And I think that's something my business definitely taught me. And that's part of those clean boundaries in business of like, work with the people who get you, work with the people who are ready, work with the people who are excited about your work, who resonate with your work. Don't work with the people that you constantly have to explain yourself to. Don't work with the people that you constantly have to convince. Right? Like, I don't want to be pitching myself to you every single time we have a session.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of, people who like claim the title of healer and stuff like that, I think that's really common, to either try to work with those people or not have enough clients because they've never actually said to themselves that there are enough people out there who get what I do, who want to hire me to fill my practice. And that's something that your business understands much better than most human beings, most business owners, right?
Yeah.
And that's something that my business definitely taught to me, is that there are plenty of people who totally understand me and totally value my work.
Yeah. I'm curious if we can identify more about that shift. Like, was there a point where you found yourself more surrounded by people who didn't get it? And now I assume you are way more surrounded by people who do.
That's interesting. I actually don't feel like the people I'm surrounded with, like the quantity of people who get my work has actually changed very much.
Interesting.
Um, I think it's more a matter of um, like right from the very beginning, I've always had a lot of confidence in my work, and
Mhm.
I've always really been able to articulate what I do.
Mhm.
Um,
That's huge.
that's huge. That's so incredibly huge, and that's one of my gifts. I'm good at communicating.
Well, it's part of your airiness, probably.
Yeah, exactly, right. Communication is something that I'm skilled at, and being able to take something that's esoteric and put words to it and put metaphor to it is something I'm good with words. I'm good at doing that.
Mhm.
And I know a lot of people in the wellness realm are not, that's not one of their inherent skills. They have to develop that as a skill.
Mhm.
Um, and that can take a tremendous amount of effort.
Yep.
Um, but I honestly, I'm not sure that the people, like, I still go to, regular networking events
Mhm.
that are filled with like bankers and like um people who work in the corporate world, and people, that there, it's not like I go to some like especially like crunchy networking groups where they all get me, right? And I actually I find it I find it so much more exciting even to be in groups of people who don't necessarily get what I do, because it becomes really abundantly clear when I've met a match in a client, right? Because that person just like explodes in front of me, right? Where I start saying what I do and they're like, "Oh my god, like I need that." Right? And then I have a new client like that, right? And it's so clean and it's so clear and it's so easy because there are so many no's around me, right? Like there are so many people who are just like glazed over or like, right? They don't get it. And I'm like, like chakras. And they're like, we've been having really nice weather. Like, they want to move on really quickly. And it's like, yeah, like, okay. Um, And to me, that's actually like so clarifying because you get that contrast. And to me, that's like, then I don't have to waste my time. And I also find that people in the wellness industry as a whole, uh, more often, like I hardly have any people as clients who are wellness professionals themselves,
Mm.
with the exclusion of coaches, I would say, but like acupuncturists, massage therapists, um, chiropractors, right? Like I hardly have any of them, because I think they have a tendency to hop, right? They're in exploration mode,
Mm.
right? Rather than like deep work mode. So they
Interesting.
don't want to stick with someone and do really deep work. They want to try 85 different things.
Hmm. I
And
feel very
so
seen right now. So
good.
I'm
So
like,
being in the wellness industry and networking with other wellness professionals, um, is actually not my sweet spot. Because what I get from that are one and done, right? People who have one session with me and they're like, that was amazing. And tomorrow I'm seeing a psychic. And the day after that, I'm seeing a Reiki master. And the day after, right? And so they're like on to 20 other things, right? And my most profound work is done with people who want to excavate something, who want to create something, and they want to partner in doing that, right? They want someone who's going to learn their story, who's going to witness their journey, who's going to be there for them over a period of time. And even if that's just like maintenance for their biofield, right? Even if that's just helping them maintain their energy while they're moving through something, right? While they're on a leg of their journey. Um, and so I think for me, learning that has been really, really profound. And it's helped me keep a really clean boundary because my business doesn't want that one off, right? That doesn't feel good because one, it's unstable, right? Because it's like constant change and there's no continuity to it. And there isn't great relationship building in that. And you don't actually get to help see something through.
Yeah.
Right. And my business, unlike me, my business is a finisher. It wants to see something done, it wants to see something accomplished. Um, and so I'm a much better starter than a finisher. My business is a much better finisher than a starter.
Complimentary. Perfect.
Complimentary. And so I think that's been a really important boundary that it has taught me. And I think that was just a perspective shift, right? When I've been in the same rooms of people. So that didn't really change. What changed was how I looked at those people that I was in a room with. Like, could I look at that room of people and say, there are 25 people here who are not ideal clients? Yes. Or could I look at them as a room full of people where there's one ideal client in this room? They're here. I don't know who they are, but I'm going to find them. And so I think that was the shift.
Well, and I'm wondering now about take it home from the networking meeting, right? So like, was there a similar shift in your personal life? Like for me, one of the things I've noticed over the last 5 years is that my support team really wasn't what I thought it was, honestly. And not trying to place a judgment on that, but it has been really important for me to invest time and energy into building relationships with people like you, right? Like the people who I've been investing time and energy into building a relationship with, who get what I do, who want to encourage me forward, who aren't just, well, aren't we having nice weather today? Like, let's just ignore that she just said that weird thing. I wonder I guess maybe my question is about the way that your business and its boundaries interact with your personal life and the people you surround yourself with. And just to ramble a little bit more, it's like the confidence that you mentioned. I can see that makes a huge difference in communicating what you do. And I know that's been a huge mountain for me to climb up personally, in so many ways that I relate to what you've already said, about like what people tell you need to do, and people not understanding your work, and like, how to change the way that that's being experienced, how to experience what you're saying, where you're communicating what you do so clearly that the people who are around you that are a fit are just light bulbs in the room because you're so clear, you're so confident that it just becomes easy and natural. And so much of confidence, at least for me, building a confidence to communicate in that way has relied on the people that I'm surrounding myself with regularly, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, so yes, that absolutely has influenced and like bled into my personal life for sure. Because um, I think one big thing is there are people in my life who are always going to be in my life by choice, right? I want them there, like my family, right? And so whether they get what I do and why I do it has to become irrelevant, right? Because in order for me to feel like safe and engaged in that relationship, I need to find other ways to connect with them rather than trying to like make them understand, right? Because if I was in front of a potential client, I would never try to make them understand, right? They either vibe with it or they don't, or a seed is planted and they circle back, right? And so I think that's been a huge lesson of like, you can't will someone to understand. You can't will them to get it. And so you can now I feel like I have sort of different groups of people for different things. Like I have friends who get all of me, right? They see all of me, you being one of them. And I'm so, so grateful for that. Virtual hugs.
Yes, I just my computer.
Right. And I can say anything and I can be anything and I can change however I need to change. And yeah, that like just total freedom, right? And those tend to be people who own businesses because that's a very particular thing to understand. And people who don't own a business or have never owned a business or done something similar don't get it. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. So I have that group of friends who totally, totally gets it. And then um, I have some friends who are very intentionally not business owners because we never talk about business. And I think that that's really healthy for me to have people who don't get that. That I can't talk to about my business because they don't understand. And it forces me to look at other stuff and focus on other stuff and like let that part of me like replenish and move off to the side, right? Because that's not all that I am. And I have like tons of interests and tons of hobbies. And I think it's really important to have those relationships where they don't get what it is to be a business owner and they don't care to get to it, like they're not trying to understand. It's sort of irrelevant. And I think that's really important. And it's kind of, it's again, like it's similar to that networking experience of like, there are people who I'm really going to connect with and like at a networking event and or in business or whatever, and they're not going to get what I do, but we're still going to like each other. Right? We're still going to enjoy one another's company and we're still going to vibe professionally, right? And maybe even become friends, and they still might not get what I do, and that's okay. And I think that's really important to have both, right? Because one invites you to step outside of that part of your identity and explore everything else. And one allows that part of you to be completely, completely seen and understood. Um, so yeah, I think that's that very long answer to the question of yes, that does seep into other areas of my life.
I love it. I appreciate you sharing all of that because I think that there's just so much value in all of that. And I think it can become an area of so much tension. I know it has for me.
Yeah.
when we're trying to force somebody to get something that they just don't.
Yeah. And maybe don't even want to.
Yeah. And they
Right?
don't
Like
need
they're
to.
not interested and they don't need to. And I think there's so much, so much value in being like, that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay that you don't want to understand this. It's okay if you can't understand this. That's okay. I'm not going to try, right? I'm not going to like hammer on this to like will you to understand it. That's okay.
Yeah.
Right? Maybe we can find other ways to connect that are really meaningful, and maybe we can't. And in that case, like, aren't we both better off not investing in this relationship? Right? And if we can, then great. We can have other beautiful, meaningful points of connection.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, it's making me think of my relationship where like
Yeah.
we're very different people,
Mm.
so there's sometimes where conversations fall into that category. Really hard. It's
Yeah.
really hard. And it doesn't even mean that that person will never want to have the conversation like you nudged to or nodded to before. You can plant a seed for later, but the forcing is just not effective, really. It like
Mm.
slows it down, if anything, their understanding of
Totally.
the thing that you're trying to share.
Well, and does that even feel good? Right? If you're trying to share something and it's not met with curiosity, right? It doesn't feel good to share something that isn't met with curiosity or openness or willingness or whatever, right? And so to me that just feels like a waste of energy beyond that initial test out,
Mhm.
right? Like I remember I went on a second date with a guy and for some reason we had like just got around to the conversation of what we do for a living,
Hmm.
which I think maybe that's like a really positive thing. But we got around to that conversation and he was like, "Oh, so you don't have a real job?" I was like,
How do you really feel, Jeff?
I was like, "No third date for you, sir." But like how clarifying is that, right? I don't have to invest anything else into this because I offered something up and it was met with no openness, no curiosity, no understanding, no desire to understand,
Assumption.
which is like so clarifying,
Right.
right? Like that, I don't have to waste another second with this person. I can see myself out,
Mhm.
right? Like what a gift.
Yeah.
What a gift, right? That And I think that that too often, especially in business, and maybe in like beginnings of relationships like that, right? When people are dating, um, I think there's too much of that trying to make your work fit for someone because you want that client so bad or you want that date so bad or whatever that um you want to try to like jam that square peg into a round hole, right? Like you want to make it work, you want to make them understand. And I think especially with helpers, right? That you could help them.
I could help anyone. Just
Right? Which
bring
is
me for
probably true.
it. Yeah.
But on the flip side of that is like you can't help anybody who doesn't want your help,
Right.
right? Who isn't open or willing or curious. And so I also think um it's a huge time saver and energy saver to like cast cast that net wide and whatever slips through, right? Like don't go chasing for it.
Yeah. Well, because all the time you're spending trying to fit yourself into a box that that person can understand, you might have rendered yourself invisible to 5 perfect people in the room, all because
Totally.
you're doing a song and dance that you don't even like for this one person
Yeah.
who doesn't get it.
Exactly, exactly. And I think that's um it's funny. Someone described, um, he might even listen to this. So one of my dear clients described in an email to me about other stuff that someone had told them about how they observe me at a networking event, and that I stand somewhere and let people come to me, which is exactly what I do. And I set that intention that my business, that my energy is going to draw the right people to me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I like set up a spot and they come to me. And
That's good to know.
yeah. And that didn't start off as conscious or intentional. It was just like, I don't want to be bothered going to talk to all of these people, which sounds kind of bad, but also like, I'm going to conserve my energy so that I can really spark when someone comes along that's a right fit for me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think that is very much a function of my business. That's how my business likes to operate.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And I wonder if you are, which I'm sure that you are, setting light bulbs off all over the place of people who are listening to this and just dying to connect with you. Is there anything that you want to share with people about how they might be able to do that?
Oh, sure. So they can go to my website, which is hilarieme.com, HILARIEMAE.com.
In the show notes,
Uh,
people.
and they can also find me on Instagram, same handle at Hilarie May. And I love chatting with people. Like no sales pressure. I often don't even bring up. I usually wait for people to bring up working with me. I don't even bring it up. So there's no impending sales conversation. So I just love to answer people's questions and be a resource for them, especially if they're trying to, even if they're not going to hire me, but they are in the process of hiring a coach or hiring an energy practitioner, or hiring kind of anyone in that wellness realm, and they just need help navigating that. It can be a really unwieldy and overwhelming space to be in.
Oh my God. It's dangerous out there, folks.
Dangerous. It's crazy. And so if they're just trying to navigate that and discern that, I'm also happy to be a resource for that as well, because I am well versed in discernment and navigating that space and really leveraging it and finding the right person. So even if that person isn't me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing. Well, and if I may add about Hilarie's work, that, and maybe I'm wrong, you can correct me, Hilarie, if this is an outdated understanding.
I doubt it.
But from my experience, sometimes if you're looking for the right person, or you know, you need something and you're not quite sure what it is, I've experienced that Hilarie's work can be clarifying in that way. It could maybe clear up the space for you to see clearly what's already right in front of you, sort of a deal. I don't know if I'm
Yeah.
saying that clearly enough, but
Yeah.
and I'll also just throw out that the work that we've done together years ago now,
Mm.
was huge. We worked together right before I met my current partner. And trust me when I say that was a long, arduous, painful process. And Hilarie knows, because she was not only in phone conversation, but in my energy field as all of that was going on. And I had other help too, but I have no doubt that you created the space, you helped me be ready and open to
Mm.
the love of my life coming in. And that's a huge thing.
Yeah.
I'm always very grateful to you for
Oh,
that.
Well, and it's always an honor. That's one of those things that um, is such a tangible outcome.
Yeah.
And I love that's happened for lots and lots of my clients. The same with like people getting pregnant who had been trying for years to get pregnant. I've had a lot of that. Um, I've also had a lot of people like birth businesses and up level businesses, and a lot of people um, shift into a lot of embodiment, right? And really being able to feel their energy, feel their body, and leverage both of those as the massive assets that they are.
Mhm.
Um, and so that's that, all of those things are kind of what my work centers on. And I love those tangible, like you saying that now you could welcome in the love of your life. Like that's so huge and so beautiful. And of course it was such an honor to be part of that. Um, but yeah, that's often what my people use my work for.
Yeah, you do. You have a track record of
I do.
the
Businesses and
love.
babies and love of your life.
I think it's really interesting because I have had several people tell me like that I probably am having a baby soon in the psychic realm,
Whoa.
like guidance.
Yeah.
This has been a message that I've gotten for years, honestly, and I'm still without baby. And I don't know why I'm talking about this on a podcast because it seems really personal, but I wonder if this is an area of my life that I'm grasping and not just allowing to have it happen because I'm like, this is not the time. But that's,
Sure.
yeah, I don't know. Like we're at the end of the podcast, so I guess I'm gonna leave everybody on a huge cliffhanger on that one. If you
Right?
give any shit
Cliffhanger. I like it.
about my reproduction, but I just find it hilarious because yeah, I can only imagine that you would be incredibly if I wanted to open up the pathways for that. But I am also in amazement of my power of controlling my situation. That
Yeah.
telling me that I have a baby coming soon,
And
and
you're like, nope,
yeah, the closest
not
thing
right
I have is
now.
my dog. So he's a
Maybe
pretty,
they're all just waiting for you to open up the door.
oh geez, I'm gonna have like quintuplets once I finally,
The floodgates are going to open.
oh my goodness. Well, and on this note, I have a fun little surprise for you that I like to end every podcast with a little rapid fire questions
Okay.
that I'm now, okay, here we go. Are you ready?
I am so ready.
What is your morning drink?
This is such a weird answer, but I'm going to be really honest. It's the Organigold instant latte mix. So it
Mm.
has loads of reishi mushrooms in it.
Mm.
Um, but like it's not organic. It's probably not the healthiest thing in the world, but oh my God, it's perfect for me.
Wonderful. Love it. What's your happy hour drink?
Gin and tonic with Bombay Sapphire.
There you go. Girl. What is the music that you're listening to right now?
Oh my God. Um, I have been deep, deep, deep into Irish fiddle music lately.
I love you. You're so varied. You just like hit all the marks. Irish fiddle music.
I mean, I listen to tons of stuff, but that's what's been hot lately.
And that's why I say she just covers all of the bases because I'm obsessed with Hilarie, if you haven't been able to tell by now. So I've actually gone into her Spotify and like listened to Hilarie playlists.
The crazy rabbit hole, folks.
But like Irish fiddle music was not what I was expecting, though it does fit in. Anyway, I ramble. Thank you for sharing. I don't know if you listen to podcasts. I feel like you've told me you don't, but I wonder what your must listen podcast is.
I do. I really love the Successful Mind
Mm.
podcast.
Hmm.
Not all of it, but that I don't know. There's something about that. It almost makes me feel like I'm listening to a preacher
Mm.
preach, and I grew up listening to preachers preach. So there's something like really comforting about that. And I'm also endlessly entertained by a podcast called Girls on Porn.
Oh,
And it's these two women, very much like liberal feminist women who are essentially like commenting on and critiquing and discussing and getting curious about porn. And
interesting.
I find it super, super fascinating because they get really deep on like our expressions of sexuality
Mhm.
and how that impacts who we are and how we are in the world and how that industry influences our culture. And um, yeah, I find it super entertaining and fascinating.
That sounds really interesting. I'm gonna have to check that out. Um, have you had a best movie that you watched recently?
Hmm. A best movie recently? I don't think I have, honestly.
Okay.
I don't think I have. I'm big into like I tend to rewatch old things rather than watch new things.
I feel that sometimes I'll get in a mood where like I just have to watch this specific random ass movie that I watched a zillion times when I was a kid.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it like brings me back to something that I need. I hear
Hmm.
you on that.
Yeah.
If you think of anything, feel free to tell us after we've moved on.
Sure.
I wonder what's your favorite color?
It tends to change, but I really like the color pink.
Interesting. Pink. Are we talking light pink or dark pink?
Like magenta.
Yeah. Mm,
Darker.
nice.
Yeah.
Do you have an alter ego?
Yes, I do.
I'm
Um, is that do you want to know anything about her?
if
Or
you're
we're gonna
open
leave
to
it at that.
sharing, if you're open to sharing, then yes.
Yeah. I think we might have talked about her a little bit. Her name is
Probably.
Alita Wexler.
Okay. Have we talked
And
about her?
I
Maybe.
don't know, but
Oh, okay.
she's very fully formed.
Well, I'm very happy to meet her.
Yeah, Alita Wexler, that's her name. And yeah, she's just like a um I I don't know why I feel like describing her as this, but I feel like she's a little like Carmen Sandiego-esque,
Okay. Okay.
like a worldly woman of mystery.
Ooh, Rita Wexler. I love it. Thank you for sharing.
Sure.
And finally, hard question. Do you have words to live by that you would like to offer?
I mean, I'm circling back to slow is smooth and smooth is fast. I
Hmm.
love that. I repeat that to myself all the time. And I find that it's really, really useful when life gets choppy
Mhm.
or feels unwieldy, as it so often can. Um, and yeah, I'll leave it at that.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure.
And hopefully, we'll have you again soon.
I would love it.
And now you're stuck with just me again. Welcome back. I hope that you enjoyed that conversation with Hilarie. Oh my God, how good was that? So many gems. And gosh, if you made it through the whole almost 3 hour conversation, then congratulations. You just ran like an energetic marathon. I don't know about you, but I am feeling incredible after dipping my toe into the vibes of that conversation. I wanted to update you on a few things that have changed. I mean, Obviously, this interview was recorded almost 3 years ago now, which is crazy. I'm sorry that it took me so long to get it to you, but a lot has changed, as I mentioned last time. We discussed meditation a lot in this episode, and I had mentioned that I was learning how it was a non-negotiable for me to start my day with meditation every single day. That has not remained true up to this day. Not that meditation is effective. I'm sure it would be excellent for me to actively meditate every single morning, but I did have a baby, which I think is funny considering the last conversation that we were having about all the psychics predicting that I was going to have a baby soon. I did, in fact, have a baby shortly after this was recorded, or at least got pregnant. It took some time to bake him. But I mean, life just definitely rearranged for me in all of that, and meditating every single morning hasn't been accessible to me the whole time. Or I should say, I wasn't making it a priority all the time, but I am starting to write morning pages again, which is kind of like a writing meditation almost. When you start your day and you just write free flow for a couple of pages, fill up the pages, and like empty out your brain at the beginning of the day. I do experience this as a sort of meditation. I feel like there are a lot of types of meditation, so you really need to experiment to find what feels right for you. I talked about conscious wholeness a couple times in this episode, and I did just want to let you know that I closed my conscious wholeness course. It was at least a year ago now, probably more. I'm not currently welcoming new people into the course, but it is coming back. I'm working on getting all the videos updated for you, and basically just repackaging it, cleaning stuff up. And I am planning to host a new live round here, hopefully sometime in 2024. So stay tuned for that. And if you want to make sure to stay in the loop about it, just send me an email, shoot me a message, text me, whatever, and let me know. I'll make sure to get you on the right mailing list. You could also go to my website and sign up for the free 5 days of wholeness experience, and that will put you on the wait list to make sure you're the first to hear about conscious wholeness when it's ready for you. I would love to hear in the comments, what's your biggest takeaway from this conversation? There were so many things to take away, weren't there? But I think the biggest thing that is sticking with me right now is the conversation about comfort zone and how that overlaps with boundaries. It had me feeling like our comfort zones are just one big boundary that we set with the universe, like what we have decided we are and are not willing to feel safe experiencing. And thinking about how we can play with that to set new boundaries for ourselves so that we can experience more. But yeah, let me know what's resonating with you the most. Please let me know. I would love to hear from you. You should definitely connect with Hilarie on Instagram at Hilarie May, or learn more at her website, hilariemay.com. I will make sure that those are linked in the show notes. I would also love to connect with you further. I do have room for a few private clients right now. I would also love to offer something special to you if you made it all the way through this podcast, and offer you $200 off an epiphany session, which are basically almost like a paid consultation with me, but they are highly working sessions where we will get very clear on what it is that you're working towards and what some simple shifts are that you can make in your day-to-day routine that will help you get there more easily. more pleasurably in ways that feel really good to you. I live to help you expand your bandwidth so you can feel more love and more peace while you have even more impact professionally in your career so that we can have it all, right? I believe in that for you. So if you would like to explore that with me, please feel free to book either an epiphany session, and you can message me for that code to get your $200 off, or just book a time to discuss it with me if you're not sure. I will leave both of those links in the show notes. And I also just want to give one last thank you to Pi, who created our podcast sounds, and you can reach out to him at his email address. It's iimpii@gmail.com. That is in the show notes as well. And until next time, my friends, please take care.